Well, good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. And welcome to today's webinar on OnBase Capture Process Designer. Just giving a moment here for a few other people as I see that are logging in. Make sure they're logged in fully. There we go. So Capture Process Designer is a powerful tool that allows you to create scanning queues in a visual way. As a high-level summary, traditional scan queues are linear processes that follow a single path. Capture Process Designer is flexible, allowing for choices within the queue depending on the content of the documents being scanned. So you can think of Capture Process Designer like a Visio diagram for your scan queue. As usual, the audience will be muted throughout the presentation, but please feel free to send any comments or questions via the chat window during the presentation, and we will review them at the end. Please also complete the survey at the conclusion of today's webinar. And as always, we record each webinar for future reference. So if you find today's presentation helpful, you can visit the link listed here to watch it again or share it with your organization. Today's webinar is brought to you by the Naviant Customer Success Team. Presenting today is myself, Andreas Zimmerman. Here's an overview of today's topics. We will first do a quick general comparison of Capture Process Designer to the standard scan queues. Next, we will look at accessing the configuration in Studio and the use of the resulting Capture Process Design scan queue in the Unity client. Lastly, we'll dig into some more details of the configuration to see the scope of what is possible with Capture Process Design. We'll start with a brief comparison of Capture Process Designer to traditional scan queues. All scan queues, regardless of type or design, have common traits and functionality. These include import, indexing, and commitment of documents into OnBase. The way traditional scan queues are normally created in the configuration module are limited in how they can be designed and what they can do. They are limited to a single line of logic, where tasks flow in a waterfall progression one step at a time and cannot vary from that path. The permissions are granted for the entire scan queue, so any user that needs to work within it sees every step in the queue, even if they are not supposed to be doing work within one or more of them. So it's an all or nothing permission type. And all documents within a batch must be completed 100% at every step before anything in the batch can move forward. This translates to limited customization options and a narrow approach to scan queues in general. Capture Process Designer allows you to create scan queues that are more flexible, with several features that make this stand out from standard scan queues. One is the ability to add or skip steps. For example, document separation as an optional step only if it meets certain criteria. You can choose the default starting task for a batch based on how it was ingested into the system. For example, sweeping documents start at indexing, while scanned files would start at document separation. Granular permissions mean that you can assign tasks to users so that they only see the specific task they need. Indexers may only need to see the indexing step, but not need to see the exceptions queue, while an administrator would be able to see all tasks for a queue. Evaluators are used to make decisions. These can be ad hoc tasks that users can decide where to send documents to, or they can be automated to allow if-then logic to move a document to the next step. Documents can be processed independently of an entire batch, so that multiple processes can be completed at the same time. All documents in a batch must still be complete before it will commit. The overall process flow chart in Capture Process Designer is viewed visually like a Visio diagram, allowing you to see each step and the flow of tasks in between each step. This gives you a snapshot of the entire process at a glance. This list shows a summary of reasons why using Capture Process Designer is beneficial over the standard scan queues. This includes customization, better permission options, and visualizing the design process for a better understanding and planning of what you would like to do, as well as easier troubleshooting and editing at later times. Next, we'll take a look at an overview of Capture Process Designer and how to access it. OnBase 16 is when Capture Process Designer first became available. A desktop or production document image license is required in order to use Capture Process Designer. All of the design takes place in Studio and can be accessed under the Capture Process tab in the Repositories panel. This is still a form of scan queue, however, so the initial scan queue still needs to be created in the configuration module before the design tasks are completed in Studio. The functionality of a Capture Process Design all takes place in the Unity client. These will not function in either the web client or the FIT client. So some automated processes can still be done by the FIT client in the background, but all of the user indexing is done in the Unity client. Next, we will look at the configuration of Capture Process Designer and the settings that are available in Studio. To create a scan queue in the configuration module, open the import menu and select scan queues. You can select an existing scan queue that you want to utilize Capture Process Designer with, or type in the name for a new scan queue. The most important part and only required setting within configuration is located in the Process Settings window. If this checkbox is not selected, the scan queue will not appear in Studio, and therefore a new Capture Process Design cannot be created or applied to it. Once this is saved, you can close configuration and proceed to Studio to continue. So this is the only option that is required within configuration. To access the available scan queues in Studio, click on the Capture Process tab in the Repositories menu. You can also click on the Capture Process tab in the menu bar to bring up options for creating, deleting, and publishing queues and designs. To begin working on an existing process when you enter Studio, it needs to be checked out, similar to a workflow lifecycle. For a Capture Process Design, right-click on the Capture Process and choose Design, or Control+V as a keyboard shortcut. This opens the design window up and checks the process out for editing. This is then the main view of the Capture Process Designer window. By default, the Toolbox tab is closed. Simply click on it to open the menu. With the Toolbox open on the left-hand panel, all of the elements available to add into your design become visible. The panels can also be dragged to different positions depending on where you want the panels to be displayed. The view shown here is the default panel setup. You will need a minimum of 3 steps for a new scan queue for Capture Process Designer: import, awaiting index, and awaiting commit. These 3 are required because you need a way for documents to be brought into the system, definitions for indexing documents and keywords, and then a path for the documents to be committed in OnBase. So let's assume you wanted to create a custom design that included barcode, custom processing, image processing, keyword processing, and a verification step. Each of these can be dragged from the toolbox design into the central design window. Once they're dropped into place, the steps can be moved into the order you wish them to be. Once each step has been added into place, they can be moved around, evaluators added, and the properties for each one can be accessed by clicking on the tile that is in the design view or the list view on the repositories menu. In the right-hand properties panel, for each step, you can rename the capture process name at the top of the general tab. This name is what the end users will see when they are working within the scan queue in the Unity client. Each step has unique properties based on what that step is doing. Evaluators are the black arrows connecting every step. They are easily created by clicking on the Evaluator button in the Design tab on the menu bar. Each evaluator can be configured as one of three options. The first option is a default evaluator. This processes steps automatically as soon as the document has cleared any processing required in the queue. The second is an ad hoc evaluator. This gives the user a choice of whether to continue the document through the normal path or to push the document to a different step. For this example, the verify step. The third is a system task evaluator. This moves a document to the next step based off criteria that needs to be fulfilled. So for this example, if the status of the document is indexed, it will move to the next step automatically. Evaluators are used to move documents from one step to another, either automatically through if-then or true-false type logic, or manually through ad hoc tasks as decision points for the indexing user. You can also choose a specified type. A common use for this is to use the document status type, which allows you to choose from three pre-configured choices: indexed, unindexed, and needs rescan. As soon as a document is assigned to the selected status, it is moved through that evaluator to the next step. Document type evaluators are used in the event you have multiple document types assigned to a single scan queue, or you want to move a document to a verification step by changing the document type to none. You can also choose to evaluate based on the file type. This would be useful in an import step. So for example, if the file type was an image format, such as TIFF or JPEG, the evaluator would move the document to an image processing step. Or you could configure it that if the file type was a PDF, it would go straight to the indexing step. The last options for evaluators are based on keywords, or multi-instance keywords. Once a specified keyword is populated, the evaluator can move the document to the destination step. You can also set it so that a keyword must be a specific value to determine which step it moves to. Permissions in Capture Process Design can be assigned to any step in a design and are limited to the user groups that have been assigned at the top scan queue level. Individual steps within a capture process design can now have one, some, or all the users available for the queue assigned to that step. By clicking on the Add button, you can choose individual groups, or by clicking on Add All, you can quickly add every user group to the step. Permissions can also be based on the options available within a step. For example, in the Verify step, there are a number of options available for indexing permissions. Many of the available steps types have their own set of permissions that are available. So be aware that they can be reviewed for more granular control of permission options within each step type. When you are enabling items with the custom processing properties, you can choose the order of processing for any of the items that have been enabled. Tasks in this list are carried out in the order that they are listed in the process order window. You can click on the process order button at the bottom of the properties panel to open up the process order window, and then change the position of any item in the list by clicking and dragging the item to a new location. It is important to make sure that tasks that could potentially conflict are placed in the correct order. In this example, the evaluator that moves documents to the awaiting commit queue will only do so once the document status is set to indexed. If the change document status process were to occur first, the document would leave the step before it had a chance to send it to the workflow. So send to workflow needs to be listed first in the process order window. Independent document processing is what allows multiple users to work on the same batch at the same time. In normal scan queues, this is a linear process where all documents in a batch need to be complete at every step before it can be passed on to the next one. A batch of 10 documents would have to have all 10 documents completed at every level before it could pass on to the next one. In a capture process design scan queue, documents within a batch can be at any of the steps at the same time. For example, if you have a batch with 10 documents in it, you could have 2 documents in the barcode step, 3 in the waiting index, 1 in verify, and 4 documents already completed. This means that you could have 1 or more users working on indexing, processing barcodes, and an administrator working on the verification step simultaneously. The last step of any capture process design queue requires that every document in a batch is gathered together before it will finish the batch. So in this example, all 10 documents need to be complete before the awaiting commit step will process the batch. Another feature of Capture Process Designer is the ability to have active and inactive processes within a single scan queue. This allows you to copy, create, and modify a process within the same scan queue without having to publish it, all while the current active process is still running. To create a second process within the same queue, right-click on the scan queue in Studio, and then choose the New Capture Process option. You are given a window to name the new process. In this example, we simply added the number 2 behind the original name. Clicking OK, it now shows up in the list. Note that the original process has the words active after the name. This designates which one is currently published and usable. You can now safely edit and work on the second queue freely without interrupting anyone who is currently using the original, and without any fear of editing something that would affect something that's already in production. To assist in making documentation or planning changes or upgrades, screenshots of the process design can be captured from within Studio. You can open the Design tab on the top menu bar and choose Copy Diagram as Image. This copies the diagram in the view to the clipboard for use in Office or image programs to use as needed. This allows you to take a screenshot of your capture process design and drop it directly into documentation, and it clears up any of the clutter that you may have from the background grid or other elements that you don't want in your documentation. You can format the view of the design window to make it easier to distinguish different parts of the process or highlight steps to group them together. This can be done by using the options in the Format menu. This menu has 49 tiles in the color palette and options for text color, font, and size. In this example, we have selected the steps involved in verification, image processing, and keyword processing steps. We colored the tiles orange and made the text bold. This makes the steps stand out so that they are easier to identify. Using these format options can make it easier for multiple users who are working on configuration to quickly see each set of processes in the design. We'll quickly review the Capture Process Design effect in the Unity client. For the most part, the view in the Unity client is the same as what users would expect to see with a normal scan queue. So there is no need for extra training from this perspective. Users still click on batch scanning or batch processing to import new documents or to work on documents that are already in the queue. The processing window will look the same, with the only addition of the new scan queue name being visible for users to see. So while there isn't a lot of changes in the Unity client, what they will notice is that the Capture Process Design gives them the administrators the option to push different tasks to different users or different groups based off of the criteria for the business process better. Some additional resources you can consider. First are the following manual reference guides, or MRGs. Each of these documents can assist with information about Capture Process Design and related modules. If you do not have one or more of these MRGs, you can find them on the Highland community site, or you can put in a request to the Naviant support line and we'll be happy to send them to you. In doing research for Capture Process Design, we discovered that there is currently no individual documentation for it. However, there has been a request put on the Highland Ideas page. If you would like to get onto the Highland Ideas page and vote to have this pushed up, we think it would be a great idea to have all of the information for Capture Process Design put into one document. Currently, the 4 documents that you see we have listed is where the information is located. So it is scattered about a little bit, but it is available. The other resource can be found on the Highland training site. Each of these 4 available courses require a premium subscription for access, and one of them includes a full lab with a walkthrough of the design process from the start in Studio and through the finish in the Unity client. It gives a overall view of how a Capture Process Design is converted from a scan queue, is moved into Studio, how the different parts and steps are dropped into place and configured, and what the resulting changes look like in the Unity client. We have a couple of scheduled webinars coming up. There will be additional information in the follow-up email from today's presentation with details on these and how to register for them. And with that, we've covered all the information in this webinar, and we can now open it up for any questions that you may have about Capture Process Designer. So there was one question here asking if Capture Process Designer is a separate module, and it is not. It is built-in functionality to OnBase already. What you do need is the licensing for it. As we mentioned at the beginning, they are the document image licensing. Once that licensing is available, then the Capture Process Design is available within Studio. Any other questions from anyone today? There's another question here. Can you have one scan queue for several document types, even if one document type does not need to go through an index process? Yes, you can. You can, with a traditional scan queue, it is possible, but it's much more difficult to do. With Capture Process Designer, you can assign multiple document types to a single scan queue and have automated logic to, based off of keywords or other decision points within the queue, it can assign that document type to a document or to a whole batch based on some of that criteria. In a normal scan queue, it is still possible. It's more of a manual selection process. So often what happens in a regular scan queue is a single document type will be assigned to that scan queue, and that becomes the default. And it's very easy to either mess it up or slip up or just not realize that it was assigned to the wrong document type. There is one other question here. Does a scan queue have to have a indexing step? And it does not. You don't have to have an indexing step, because if you're using something like OCR, you can have the OCR automatically assign your keywords based off of what it's read. There is also the option that if you don't use an indexing step, depending on the document that's being brought in, it may only need, for example, a document date and the document type. There are some required fields like that, but to have specific keywords, as long as the keywords themselves are not required, you don't have to have an indexing step. Any other questions today? I want to give it a minute or two to make sure that we've given time for anyone to ask their questions. Okay, doesn't look like there's any other questions. So today there will be a recording of this sent out and an email with a survey as well. Thank you for attending this month's webinar. We hope to see you again for the next one. If there are any other questions, you can always email into support@navient.com and we'll be happy to answer them for you. Thank you again for attending, and everyone have a great day.